presentation. Today's presentation would be semantic. This video is made for final exam. So without further ado, let's start the video. So as the opening before, today I'm going to present my semantic presentation. I took meaning and cognitive as my title of presentation. But before I start my presentation, I'd like to introduce myself. My name is ESRA NAFTALIA Tambunan and I'm from English Literature Department, Universitas Pamulang. So in meaning and cognitive, this presentation is going to divide into 3 different sections. The first term is understanding categorizations, the second is challenging prototype theory, and the third one is semantic knowledge and cultural knowledge. So let's start with the first section. In the first section, there is understanding categorization. In understanding categorization, there is a fundamental notion of categorization. This fundamental notion of categorization will be divided into 3. The first one is cognitive science perspective, the second is categories and concepts, and the last is basic level of categorization. Okay, cognitive science perspective. Categorization is the mental act of classifying things and forming categories that underlie cognition in all its aspects. It is a fundamental concept in cognitive science, influencing how we perceive, communicate, and understand the world around us. So, cognitive science perspective involves the mental activity of grouping objects, events, or ideas categories based on their shared features or properties. So research in cognitive science suggests that categorization is not just about sorting things into groups, it is also about understanding the relationship between categories, making predictions, and guiding decision making. Next is categories and concepts. Upon perceiving objects, people, or experiences, individuals instantly recognize and categorize them. This process occurs across all sensory modalities, including vision, hearing, taste, and touch, and it's essential for everyday interaction and communications. So before that, let's dive deeper into what is categorized and concepts. So categories and concepts in semantics are foundational elements of understanding how language represents and organizes knowledge about the world. Categories itself refers to the mental grouping of objects, events, or idea based on shared characteristics or features. Meanwhile, concepts are mental representation of categories that include knowledge about their attributes, relationship, and typical instincts. For the example, mammals, birds, reptiles, mammals, birds, reptiles is the categories or the category of animals, which is different animals based on their biological characteristic, but people categorize them as animal. And for the concept, when we think about birds, we might think that birds is a kind of animal that has wings, can fly, and have feathers. Even though not all the birds can fly, but we still have a concept that birds is an animal that can fly, like that. Next is the basic level of categorization. So basic level of categorization is a medium level of generality that is preferred in thinking and communicating, providing a foundational framework for understanding and organizing the world. Basic level categorization refers to the level in a hierarchical classification scheme that is considered optimal for cognitive processing. It is between, like, it stands between more general, superordinate categories and subordinate categories. So the basic level, it sits in the middle of the superordinate and the subordinate. So in order to gain a more knowledge about the basic level categorization, let's see this example. So for the example, I took superordinate. Um, Superordinate means more general. So the general form of things or object is superordinate. There is animal. And from the basic level is the medium, or it's not really specific but not really general. So we have dog. And subordinate means something is more specific, the specific form of things or objects. Let's say German Shepherd. So when people say animals, we didn't say German Shepherd, we didn't say Python, or we didn't say Persian cat, but we said something is more basic, like dog. Mm, it means that we have a concept or categorization of a dog. So when people say animal with four legs and fury, we didn't say, oh, German Shepherd. No, because German Shepherd, it's too specific. So we used to, or we tend to say dog. It's dog because we have a concept, the basic level of concept of um, four legs animal with fur, and that's dog, like that. So the basic level, it sits between subordinate and the basic level sits between superordinate and the subordinate. So I hope you can understand that. Let's move. Okay, still in the first sections. So next we have the role of prototype theory. In this slide is going to divide. I also divided into three different categories. The first one is prototype theory. The second is hierarchical organization, and the third is means of differentiation. Next is prototype theory. So prototype theory is a concept in a cognitive psychology that explains how we categorize objects and concepts based on their typical or idealist representation. So for the example, imagine we're thinking about a bird. In our mind, we might have a typical image that represents what a bird looks like. A small creatures with feathers, wings, a beak, and the ability to fly. This mental image is our prototype of a bird. So, um, prototype is a typical image that represents what something looks like, what something smells like. So when we want to categorize something into different categories, we might this have um, we might have these type of concepts like an image, or yeah, like a typical image to represent the objects. For the example, let's talk about colors. Maybe when we want to categorize colors, it would be like there's two categorization of colors. The first is like the bright colors and the dark colors. So the prototype of the dark colors will be something that dark, um, deep colors, or something that not really that bright. On the other hand, the bright color is maybe something like shiny or pretty colors, or maybe like happy colors, like that. That's the typical image of a prototype. Next is hierarchical organization. Hierarchical organization refers to the arrangement of concepts into levels or tiers, where each level represents a different degree of specificity or generality. Concepts at higher levels are more general and inclusive, while those at lower levels are more specific and detailed. So prototype theory also investigates the hierarchical organization of our category system, establishing the basic level of categorization and the existence of graded category membership. the hierarchical organization would be the example of a hierarchical organization would be explained by me later in the next slide. So the next is means of differentiation in semantic. So means in differentiation in semantic refers to the distinctive features or characteristic that distinguish one concept from another within a category or across categories. This means helps us to identify and to understand different concepts and categories that appropriately. For the example, language has several meanings um, to cope with the black and white nature of the semantic category system, including flexible words meaning, lexical differentiation, and quantification. So next, okay, hierarchical categorization. So this is what we call this is what we call the whole of it, the whole of table, the whole of example of out here is called hierarchical characterization from the superordinate basic level subordinate. So the hierarchical level is to introduce us to the how to say that introduce us to the higher levels of words that maybe it's like a more general or more specific. For the example, um, the higher is the categories, it would be more general, like animal. It's so general, but when it comes to the lower hierarchical, it's going to be more specific and detailed, like German Shepherd. So when we say animal, we're going to come to the dog, not the German Shepherd. But when we say like animal um, has four legs, okay, of course it would be dog. But when we say a dog with a characteristic from a characteristic from German Shepherd, then we will say German Shepherd like that. Next is the section 2, challenging prototype theory. So in this section, we have a critically evaluating prototype theory that would divide it into two different types. Yeah, two different subcategories. The first is semantic data and explanation. The second is polarization. Okay, so semantic data and explanations. Prototype theory faces challenges when applied to semantic categories, particularly in relation to the existence of fuzzy category boundaries and gradual membership. The theory's assumptions are investigated from a semantic point of view to determine its accuracy in reflecting semantic data and providing better explanation than other approaches. So fuzzy category boundaries mean there is no clear categories. It's like overlapping categories, ambiguity categories, and that's what we call fuzzy categories. Next is the polarization. The phenomenon of polarization presents a serious challenge to prototype theory as it conflicts with the notion of graded category membership and the binary nature of categorization inherent in language use. Okay, for the last section, or this third section, we have semantic knowledge and cultural knowledge. So, in semantic knowledge and cultural knowledge, we're going to divide it into three different categories. The first is personal versus cultural knowledge. The second is abstractness of semantic concepts. And the third is the apple juice questions. Okay, let's start with the personal versus cultural knowledge. The distinction between semantic knowledge and cultural knowledge is crucial for understanding meaning relations and the stability of word meanings in the face of cultural change. It addresses the question of how much of cultural knowledge constitutes the meaning of words and the interwoven nature of semantic categories within the overall cognitive system. So, the cultural knowledge also has an impact um, to our personal knowledge, our personal semantic knowledge. Um, when we have a cultural change, uh, our personal semantic knowledge might be might be affected by this change, like and also the personal versus cultural knowledge also um, show about or emphasize about how much of cultural knowledge constitute the meaning of words and the intertwined nature of semantic categories within the overall cognitive system. Next is the abstractness of semantic concepts. The lack of many concrete features that narrow down cultural categories accounts for the abstractness of semantic concepts, allowing their application to uncommon cases outside familiar cultural categories. So, back to the fuzzy categories boundaries. The abstractness of semantic concept is refers to the fuzzy categories boundaries because the fuzzy categories boundaries gives some overlapping meaning, ambiguous meaning, and also not cut clear meaning. So that's the lack of many concrete features in the cultural categories account. So next, the apple juice questions. The distinction between semantic knowledge and cultural knowledge is necessary, important, and feasible, as it allows for the integration of semantic categories into a full model of the world and emphasizes the interdependence of categories within the cognitive system. The apple juice questions in semantics refers to a classic problem that uh, illustrates the challenge of defining and categorizing concepts based on their essential properties versus their perceptual similarity. The apple juice question serves as a thought-provoking example in semantics, highlighting the interplay between essentialism and similarity-based categorizations in defining and understanding concepts. It underscores the nuance of nature of language and cognitions, where categorization is often influenced by both objective criteria and subjective perception. So, uh, I could say that uh, the meaning of the semantic is how it's based on the people, like it's based of their knowledge, it's based for own perspective, it's best for our own perspective actually, like you can determine, like you can force people to have the same version of prototype with yourself, or the version, maybe some people when you say animal, maybe some people would say dog but the other would say cat. So it depends on the people again, and depends on their knowledge, their cultural knowledge, their personal experiences, um, and also its categorization and how it influenced by both objective criteria and subjective perceptions. So it's all coming back to the subjective perceptions, I think. And yeah, so that's all for my presentation today. If you have any suggestion, critiques, and questions, you can type it in the comment section below. I really appreciate it. So thank you for your attention and have a nice day.